Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The fluorescent lights of General Hospital cast a pale gleam across the corridors as Baldwin listened intently to Jones, her brows knitted with growing concern. He'd barely stepped through the staff entrance before pulling her aside, his voice trembling under the weight of what he'd just overheard at. The tension in his jaw was unmistakable, his normally calm demeanor replaced by urgency. He said, glancing over his shoulder, "I don't think safe." His expression changed instantly. "What do you mean?" Leaned in, voice low and hurried. "Marco and are using medication manipulating her. There's some kind of project going on, and they're using her to keep it under wraps." Her heart sank, had battled too much already to be turned into someone's pawn again. "What kind of project?" she pressed. "I don't know," admitted, "but I heard Marco talking about." He sounded worried, like planning something big and dangerous. "Didn't hesitate, then you need to leave today." Blinked at her. "You think I'm in danger?" "Yes," she said, almost sharply. "If even suspects you overheard something, you're a liability. You need to grab your things and get out of there now." But his eyes remained troubled. He didn't want to leave behind, not when she might be in trouble. But before he could respond, a page came over the intercom calling to the nurses' station. She gave his arm a squeeze and whispered, "Be careful." Meanwhile, in the dimly lit parlor of stood face to face with Marco, his arms were crossed, stance smug, while she maintained a cool and cutting stare. "Still playing doctor," Marco sneered, "even after everything." Didn't flinch. "You're deluded if you think whatever you're doing with is going to last. People like you always fall fast." He tilted his head, an amused smile playing at his lips. "You worried about me or yourself?" "Neither," said, "but if you think you can keep using my medication regimen to control me, you've got another thing coming, your little romance, it's already doomed." Marco's eyes darkened just slightly but was done playing games. With a pivot, she stormed off toward the staircase, her mind spinning not just with anger but with strategy. She needed to get out from under their thumb before it was too late. Back at the hospital, stepped outside to call in, but his gut told him he wasn't alone. Sure enough, across the parking lot stood Pascal, silent, watching, his arms folded, an expression unreadable, stiffened. Pascal had always given him the creeps, but now he seemed like a threat. He knew too much. Turned and headed back inside, taking the long way through the ER to avoid Pascal's gaze. His heart pounded with every step. He needed to warn somehow, but without blowing his cover. Elsewhere in Port Charles, poured a glass of wine in his penthouse just as the doorbell rang. To his surprise, Lucy stood there, her eyes watery and her smile apologetic. "I was wrong," she said, stepping inside as he gestured for her to enter. About everything." Raised a brow. "What changed your mind?" Lucy offered a small, dramatic sigh. "I realized I let jealousy cloud my. You want to be friends with, that's fine. I don't want to lose you over something so petty." Seemed genuinely touched, or at least intrigued enough to believe her. "That's very mature of you, Lucy." She smiled sweetly, stepping closer. "I've grown." What he didn't know was that Lucy had no intention of making peace. This was her opening, a performance meant to get close, earn trust, and eventually take down from the inside. Whatever game he was playing, Lucy was ready to play harder. Meanwhile, Brooke was stomping up the walkway to Lulu Spencer's house, her heels clicking furiously against the pavement. She wasn't in the mood for surprises, and finding West in Lulu's living room, wine and laughter, definitely counted as one. "What the hell is this?" Brooke demanded, arms crossed, glaring. Lulu jumped up, flustered. "Brooke, this isn't what it looks like." Stood, his face neutral. "We're just talking." Brooke wasn't buying it. "Talking with candles and wines." Lulu tried to interject again, but Brooke held up a hand. "Save it, I'm sick of being lied to." She turned on her heel and stormed out, her face flushed with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Later that evening, found himself in the hospital corridors, alone and lost in thought. That's when he spotted coming out of the elevator. They stared at each other for a long moment before he spoke. "There's something I need to tell you." She blinked. "What?" "It's about..." At that moment, miles away at a private recovery center, Jones sat propped in bed, blinking against the light as doctor checked her vitals. Her eyes, once dull and empty in a coma, now flickered with life. Scorpio wiped away a tear while held hand, smiling despite the worry. "She's responding well," doctor said. "The worst may be behind us." They exchanged a look they hadn't told that was alive. They didn't want to shock her, not yet. But in the hallway, young James waited anxiously, fidgeting with his shoelaces and whispering to himself, "Should I tell her? Should I tell Mommy?" The truth was bursting at the seams, and it was only a matter of time before it shattered everything. Over in the penthouse, Michael poured a glass of champagne and turned to Bracken, who sat on the edge of the couch, arms folded. Tell me about the custody agreement," she said. "Why?" Michael sighed. "I didn't mean for you to hear it from her." His eyes flashed. "Did you only make the deal with Willow because you thought I'd ruin your chances?" "No," Michael said quickly. "It wasn't about that. I wanted to make peace for sake." Didn't look convinced, but she softened when he handed her a single red rose. "I want to celebrate Valentine's Day with you," Michael said. "No drama, just us." Raised an eyebrow. "Even if I have a suggestion that's a little unorthodox." Michael smirked. "Now I'm intrigued." And just like that, the night twisted again, teetering between passion, peril, and secrets not yet spoken, paced his room at, the shadows stretching across the walls like looming threats. He had packed his bag as urged, but leaving now felt like cowardice. He glanced at the small silver flask in his drawer, not for a drink, but for courage, a gift from back when she trusted him completely. He couldn't just walk away. Downstairs, Pascal was still lingering, subtly patrolling the lower halls like a hawk circling prey. Knew he'd have to fake it, pretend he was still oblivious, still loyal. That was the only way to help now. She was in too deep with Marco and with her medication compromised, she didn't even realize how far gone they'd taken her. Meanwhile, Marco sat in the study, sipping cognac and reviewing documents tied to the secret project he had engineered. The project's title, Project Helix, was scribbled across the top of every folder, encrypted, hidden from the general staff at GH and certainly from anyone outside their inner circle. Was the key not just because of her brilliance but because of her history, a liability they could exploit. As Marco flipped through pages, a notification pinged on his phone. Surveillance footage of meeting with Baldwin. They'd underestimated him. At the hospital, returned to the nurse's station, trying to keep her mind on patient charts, but she couldn't shake the gnawing dread. She texted, "Leave now, don't risk it." No replies. She sighed. If he didn't make it out of there soon, she'd call the police herself. Back at Lulu Spencer's home, the tension between her and Brooke hadn't subsided. Lulu sat alone now, twisting the stem of a broken wine glass in her hand. She felt ashamed, not because of, but because deep down a part of her still loved him, even after all the pain, the lies, and the distance. And now he was back, alive, real, but everything was so complicated. On the other hand, had left her house and walked aimlessly before ending up back at the hospital. There, awaited his news with unease painted across her face. "It's about," he repeated. Held her breath. "What happened?" "She's awake," said, and's eyes widened. "What, are you serious?" Doctor confirmed it. She's speaking again, responsive. Covered her mouth, the tears springing uninvited. "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Stepped forward. "But we haven't told her about me, not yet." Blinked away the tears. "Why not?" "And think it could overwhelm her," he said. "Too much too soon." She slowly, "They might be right, but she deserves to know." "I know," agreed, "and when she's ready, I'll be there." At the facility, sat up with surprising strength, gently brushed her hair back while tried to keep James entertained, but the little boy had other plans. He clutched his crayon drawing and climbed into the hospital bed, placing the picture in his lap. "Mommy," he whispered, "Daddy's back." Blinked, the words rattling her. "What did you say?" "Daddy's back," James repeated. "He gave me this," he said, holding up a toy badge. Froze, eyes darting toward, who suddenly looked like he might faint. "Sweetie," said gently, "that's just pretend." "No, it's not," James insisted. "I saw him, he talked to me." Stared at the drawing in her lap, a sketch of a tall man in a police uniform smiling with blue eyes and short hair. There was no mistaking it. Her heart began to pound. Was it a dream, a hallucination, or the truth? Back in town, Lucy's plan was progressing than she imagined. He was eating out of the palm of her hand, trusting her again, confiding things he shouldn't. Tonight, he'd left his laptop open, and while he took a call in the other room, Lucy quickly snapped photos of every file she could. Project Helix blackmail files, medical trial data. She sent them in a secure message to a source only known as the Raven, an underground contact with ties to If Lucy pulled this off, she could take down, protect, and prove herself to everyone who'd ever doubted her. She just had to stay one step ahead. But was already 2 steps ahead. From her art gallery, she watched the email come in, smirking as the attachments loaded. Well, well, she murmured, looks like it's dirtier than I thought. She forwarded the files to an encrypted server and called her lawyer. It was time to strike. Back at faced Marco in the hallway, pretending to search for his keys. Going somewhere? Marco asked, leaning against the like a cobra waiting to strike. Forced a casual smile, just heading to work. Marco stepped closer. Funny you're off today. Tensed, grip tightening on his duffel bag. I just wanted to check on, he said. She seemed off lately. Marco's eyes narrowed. She's fine, we're taking care of her. Slowly, sure. See that you remember where your loyalties lie, Marco said, then walked off without another word. Let out a breath, heart pounding, he had to get out now. At General Hospital, met up with Michael for their Valentine's Day dinner after all. She looked radiant in red, though her eyes still held uncertainty. He pulled out her chair, offered her a smile. I know I messed up. Touched his hand. I believe you. He leaned in. So what's your Valentine's surprise? Smirked. It involves blindfolds, chocolate, and a prenup. Michael choked on his wine. A what? She laughed, kidding mostly. As the laughter rang out around the table, elsewhere in Port Charles the storm clouds were thickening. Back at facility, she clutched James' drawing and looked up at her mother. Tell me the truth, is alive. Hesitated, then finally she let out a gasp, her hands trembling. I have to see him. Doctor stepped in. Let's take this slow. No, interrupted. I need to see him now. And across the hospital, as if by fate, stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for her floor. Fled out the back exit, dodging Pascal's usual patrol route. He didn't know where he'd go yet, but he knew he had to run. He had to survive, forth for the truth. And as Lucy deleted her footprints from his laptop, she whispered to herself, Happy Valentine's Day, you're about to get what you deserve. In the distance, church bells rang 12. Valentine's Day had officially arrived, but for the residents of Port Charles, love wasn't the only thing in the air. Secrets, betrayal, revenge, and the promise that nothing would ever be the same again.